What's good, everybody? It's Jackson. I'm a member of Cashflow. If you want to contact me for future reference, if you like what I speak about, or you have any questions, my Instagram is cashflowjack _ and my Snapchat is Jackson Landers, LANDERSS. Or you can just go on my Instagram and it's got my link tree in there to all of my platforms. That being said, just today I'm going to have a little money talk with you guys, talk to you about mindset, and just give you guys some of the steps that I think are critical in building generational wealth long term. The first step that I came up with is you've got to stop following conventional wisdom about wealth. And what I mean by that is like your parents say, oh, you've got to go to college, man. Everybody goes to college. You got to go to college to be successful. You make $1 million more in your lifetime when you go to college. I've heard it. You've heard it. We've all heard it. That being said, I don't think college is a bad thing. I don't think that just because you don't go to college, you're stupid. I went to college. I dropped out twice. Wasn't for me. I'm an entrepreneur. I just didn't see the value in it. They teach business in college, but they teach outdated business. A lot of business nowadays has to do with social media and marketing. And so when you look at colleges, they don't teach it from a standpoint where it's applicable to today's society very much, in my opinion. And I realized that early on, so I thought it would be better for me to work on myself, save some money up, get involved in trading in the stock market. And I got in kind of at the perfect time. COVID hit, and I got everything for pennies on the dollar. That being said, when you look at me and my financial journey as well as my growth, that's sort of an anomaly in the stock market world as well as cryptocurrency. It's not something that's going to happen every day, but with the right principles, you can have accelerated levels of growth with a good foundation. Moving on kind of to the second thing I came up with, you've got to take control of your environment and put yourself in a position to be in a good headspace and the ability to develop as a person and learn as a human being. And what I mean by that is Dan Pena, a very well-known entrepreneur, he has a quote, and it's, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." If you're constantly hanging around friends that are influencing you to smoke weed, party all the time, do stuff like that, you're indirectly screwing yourself over long term, just due to the fact that it's not putting you in a position to succeed. Because your time is one of the most important things you can have on this earth, and when you're wasting time is money. And so when you do that, if you hang around bums, you're going to be a bum. And that's not always true, but it's a good thing to run by and go by. If you want to be rich, network yourself with the rich, network yourself with the wealthy, network yourself with the people in your space that are doing what you're doing. If you film YouTube videos, reach out to YouTubers. Yeah, it may not be easy, but the world isn't easy. It wasn't made it's kind of a survival of the fittest mentality. No, I'm not Charles Darwin or anything. Don't get me mixed up. But in this world, you do have to focus on yourself to be successful. And I realize that that's somewhat of a kind of self-centered thing to do, but especially in the wealth industry, you can't prioritize other people over yourself. In what I mean by that is your health, whatever your business is, you have to go 110% at that. And that was why I couldn't balance college with my business, as well as what I do for work or what makes me money, which is stock trading, crypto trading. I do occasional real estate ventures, whether it be wholesaling, state funds, things of that sort. And then thirdly, we've all heard the saying, money doesn't grow on trees. Well, at some point in your life, I'm sure your parents have said it when you ask them for money, or you ask them for money and ask them again. Well, in the world, money actually does grow on trees. You just have to, and you can make it grow on trees, but you just have to build your money tree. And you can't build a money tree that's 200 feet high like that. You have to plant the seeds and let it grow from the ground up. The roots are what I would call your foundation, and you need a tree that can grow very tall and withstand storms and things that may interact with it over time. In order to adequately and to maximize your earning potential, you must be in touch with society and use resources that are available to everyone. And you got to start early. Not that if you start late that you can't be successful, but starting early puts you ahead of the pack. You can look it up online. What is the 1% of my age bracket? If you want to constantly be in that 1%, and if you're in that 1%, you can't be mad at yourself. Be in the 1%. Constantly try and strive to be in the 1% of society. Essential prerequisites that I would say are needed in providing a rock solid foundation and a good, deeply rooted money tree would just be a couple things that you may or may not have. But first thing I would recommend is you need to have a debit checking account to store money and not carry around cash and use cash to live. On debit checking accounts, the United States government offers insurance protection on your money up to bank accounts in $250,000 increments. So you can have one account with $250,000, two accounts with $250,000. You can have four accounts with $250,000. If they're all separate, $1 million is protected. If you got $500,000 in an account, if we went into something like the Great Depression, then $250,000 would not be protected. Secondly, I would advise you to set up a savings account. I personally don't really use a savings account, but for the average consumer, average person, I would just recommend having one. You don't have to use it, but just have one to kind of have a rainy day fund, for funds that are accessible in emergency situations. For example, you might need it for a medical emergency, or if your car gets hit and run, something like that. It's really good to also get a credit card at a young age. A lot of times you've got to go give them $500, $1,000, $2,000, whatever you want your credit limit to be, but that will allow you to build credit early and often. And I'm not a real proponent of debt, but if you know how to use credit properly and you know how to leverage it to your own advantage, it can be really nice for you in the long term, especially in real estate. If you get a couple friends, 850 credit scores, y'all can get a loan, business loan, and y'all can go out and invest in real estate. And if you know what you're doing, you can make a lot of money. Of course, you've got to pay consistently and be a person who will pay back their credit, but a lot of times you'll get cash back rewards. Another thing that I would just recommend for you guys if you're struggling with money is come up with a budget. Look at what you spend money on. Where is my money going? Trace your money. Now, when you get a whole lot of money, you want to get to a point where you can't trace your money because you got money in, out, money in, out. Like I said, cash flow. That's what we're here for. We want cash flow. If you have the ability to do this, I would recommend looking into setting up a Roth IRA account. You can have it a $6,000 a year maximum, but what that does is it incurs compound interest, and over time, if you keep putting into that, your $6,000 times, let's say you start at 18 and you invest for 20 or 41 years, when you're 60, that will be a little over $2-3 million, which is taxed at a very low rate. But the younger you start, the better your money will grow and compound. And in a couple years can make a huge difference, by the way. So if you have a kid that you want to do this for, or you want to do it for yourself, just make sure that you do it that way. And you can set one up for your kid as well, and I think they're 16, but that's what they would call a custodial Roth IRA. Make sure to have insurance on houses, cars, just for things that can be very costly to pay out of pocket. Yeah, deductible's not fun to pay, but you got to have it. Fourth, one of the steps that I kind of came up with is if you want to get into the wealth game, it's not an event, it's a process. It doesn't happen like that. If you the get rich quick thing, it's just not it's not really something that is attainable for everybody. If somebody's pitching it, then it's just I would recommend staying away from it. The quicker you realize that wealth's an event, not a process, and prioritize the learning aspect of things that you want to get into, Um, and instead of tunnel visioning your way to the cash part of it and your profits, your cash flow will follow, and you'll be able to the knowledge that you gain will come with the cash because you're applying that at a better in a better light than somebody who just is in there to figure out how the fastest way to get to the cash. And the fifth thing that I would say, not that if you do this you can't, but you want to avoid the trap of lifestyle servitude. And what I mean by that is when you go work at a job and you don't have any control, you're in lifestyle servitude. You work until you're 40. You don't retire till whatever at 60 years old. I want to live my life. I want to go out and travel and do things. So if you want to do stuff like that, you have to live below your means. And six, high income does not always equate to high net worth if you don't manage it properly. Some people get into debt, they buy things they can't afford. For example, I would probably use a guy like YK Osiris. Some of you may know him, some of you may not. He drives a Hyundai now because he was trying to flex just stuff that he couldn't afford, Lamborghinis, Bentleys. And I'm not saying that he's broke or anything, but you gotta put yourself in a space where you're not trying to impress people. You want to be, hey, I am who I am. You don't want to flex to anybody. If you got it, you can go spend it. But personally, for me, everyone's always like, hey, what is your problem with going out and spending $100,000 on a car? And I'm like, well, look at it this way. You've got $100,000 on this end. This is person A. This is person B. Person A goes and buys, let's say he buys a Mercedes. It's $100,000. You wait 8 years, and this car is going to depreciate at anywhere from an 8 to a 6% value year over year, like in terms of its what's the word? Sorry, it's passing my mind. But it's just going to depreciate. The depreciation is going to be 6 to 8%. But if you got $100,000 here and you wait 8 years and you invest it in, let's say, just something simple like a mutual fund, that mutual fund will grow at an average of 6 to 7%. This person B, is looking at $165,000. This person's looking at $45,000. So you just have to know what you're doing, and a cars can only do so much. I mean, it gets you from point A to point B. So it's really not something that I personally am. I like cars, but if I can, this is just a rule that I live by. Personally, for me, some people, I know a lot of people cannot live by this rule. But if I cannot make the money in a week to pay for that expense or that car or that house, houses are a little different, but that's just something. The only thing that I would personally buy if you can't make it in a week, this is just for long term. I'm not saying that if you save up money, so you need a car. So with that being said, if you don't have a car and you save up $6,000, but you just got to stay grounded. You don't want to buy stuff you can't afford. Number 7, just something that I kind of live by. If I've got to check my bank account and go into a store and say, hey, do I have the money to afford this? And I'm like, oh, I've got $852 in my account and I'm buying a $600 Gucci belt. It's just fucking stupid. Sorry for the language again, but I'm just trying to preface, you have to manage your stuff properly. For example, if you live below your means and you invest properly, that's how I did it. I had started around $30,000. If I have $30,000 and I want to buy a Hellcat, well, I can wait to buy that Hellcat when I have the money to buy the Hellcat. But if I spend $30,000, not a Hellcat, but just a Scat Pack Charger, but just what I mean by this is if you want to buy something, don't liquidate all your funds just because you can and you can go buy something. That's one of the problems with people who are my age bracket or millennials or Gen X, Gen Z. They don't prioritize building long-term wealth. And if you can't afford the iPhone 12, go to the iPhone 11. It's not that big of a deal. Nobody cares what you have. They personally care about what they own. And so, especially if you're not in an influencer type market or you're not an influencer, nobody really cares what you do. I'm going to be honest with you. If they do, then they're not the people you need to be hanging around in the first place. just step 8, kind of one of the things that I would say. Working from a job setting is not really bad, but you don't want to fall victim to the job environment for your whole life, because if you want to build generational wealth, because the one thing I hate about jobs is they're so limited in leverage and control on the end of the employee. If the boss says go clean the toilet and you don't want to get fired or you don't want to get written up or whatever, you got to go clean the toilet, and you can't object to anything. You have no say so most of the time. Not all businesses are like that, but if you're in a marketplace where you're not high up on the chain, then that's how it's kind of going to work. 9, it's all about the math. How much money are you netting? That's your profits. Small numbers are not going to build you generational wealth. 10, you cannot win the game of life, and I'm not calling life a game because you have one life, but it's just an analogy. You can't always play defense. You gotta be on the offensive and take the necessary risk to separate yourself from the pack of the middle or the lower class. You'll most likely fail. I've failed before. I've made bad investments. I've gambled money before. Not that that's something I would recommend, but I've done it for fun. But you can't win every time. But treat failure as a learning experience. If you lose because something happened, you just have to learn from it. Take a step back, analyze what happened, and don't let it happen next time. Minimize your monetary losses in failure when it's possible. 11, lifestyle choices are what separates the 1% from the general population. You can't waste away your days playing video games and watching Netflix all day if you ever want to be wealthy for an extended period of time. Laziness and procrastination, something that I initially struggled with, are key factors in the downfall of those who did not end up successful. Don't take shortcuts. Actually, go the extra mile. Do more than typical. You have to think to yourself, if you're reading a book, if the typical person reads this book one time and you read the book one time, you're going to have the typical person's knowledge on that book. If you read it 2 or 3 times and you pull out key things, or you pull out things you missed the first time, you're going to slowly separate yourself from the pack. Now, I'm not saying you got to do that all the time, but if you don't understand something, make sure you get 100% out of whatever you're doing, whether it's learning, whether it's being at a job and trying to show them how you're valuable to them, whatever it may be. Don't take shortcuts. All the lessons that I learned that have helped me put myself in a position to be generationally wealthy is the hardest lessons and the best lessons learned come from the struggle. When you're down low, when you're not at the point where you want to be, you want to be successful. You don't want to be in a headspace of the broke guy or the broke girl. And I'm not saying that that's a problem at all, but when you have no drive and no passion to succeed and be successful, that is the issue. You have to, whatever you're doing, you've got to light a fire and be passionate and work your ass off to get to where you want to be. If you don't endure the struggle, you'll never respect the wealth, and you'll be outworked by those around you in that space, and those in your field. 12, although there are examples such as me as social anomalies, the whole get-rich-quick scheme is a fallacy. It doesn't exist on a consistent enough ratio for it to be a viable thing you should depend on or hope for. If you've seen a person who's gotten rich quick or is pitching that, it's probably, it's one of two things. You either didn't see the work that they put in to get to where they're at, or you didn't discover them until after whenever you discovered their business talent or whatever they're doing, you didn't see the work they put in. Because if you build that foundation, sometimes that foundation can skyrocket you immediately. But the whole get-rich-quick scheme, just be very, very kind of weary of it. And when you're being pitched it, kind of say, whoa, I don't know a lot about this. And you've probably seen them on Instagram, sponsored ads. hey, come earn this. I drive a Hellcat and I drop ship. No, they don't mention to you that you've got to have money to start that whole gig and start that business. 13, you want to be a producer. You don't want to be a consumer, as I was referring to earlier. Switch the playing cards. Don't be the person that has the cards dealt to them. Be the person who has the house edge and deals the cards as a producer. And that's something that I personally took into account when I started. Is like, hey man, why am I on the end of the guys who are buying stuff when I need to be on the end of guys who are selling stuff? Which I don't technically sell something other than I sell clothes. I have a little drop shipping store, and I do mentor people for money. If any of you guys need an in-depth analysis kind of one-on-one session or need a mentor for stocks, options, stock trading, cryptocurrency, you can contact me on my social media that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. I do that. But one of the reasons I do charge money for it is because I don't like having my time wasted. And I'm not saying that anyone would, but if I gave everyone my time, I would have no time. So I do charge a one-time fee for it. But I have, if you go to my Snapchat, which I mentioned, it's got testimonials of people who have been mentored by me and who I have helped start their financial journey and growth over their stock market trading and investing and real estate, as well as crypto trading. And sometimes, I mean, I'm not an expert at drop shipping. I know how to do it, but when it comes to ads and stuff like that, I'm not an expert, but I know my way around it. 14, the definition of wealth is net profit plus asset value. What are you profiting and what are your assets worth? That's what your wealth is. So 15, just moving on. That was just a little short thing that I was just explaining. Not all businesses are meant to be fast lane. Some are slow and then they take off. But the fast lane business is not something that I personally am into. 16, moving on kind of. Cash is the king of money trees. If you want to build a money tree, you got to get cash. You got to sell something that's worth value. You got to sell something that has a large profit margin. 17, I referred to it earlier when I mentioned the Roth IRAs. The rich use compound interest for income and liquidity, not to become wealthy. And what I mean by that is they use credit to build themselves residual income or passive income, not to get themselves wealthy. And a lot of people have a false kind of view of how that works, and so it can mess them up in the long term. 18, if you want to make millions of dollars, you have to directly or indirectly affect millions of people. And not saying, oh, you've got to affect 1 million people to make $1 million, but if you look at it, if you create a product and it sells, it's going to pass around to multiple people over time. So you will be affecting a lot of people. But you have to have a scalable business or a scalable idea. Sorry about that. If you are not who you aspire to be, this is just moving on to my next kind of step. If you aren't who you want to be, the problem is your choice. You have choices that you make throughout the day that mold who you are and how successful you will be. You can make changes and elevate and grow towards the life you want, but you've got to be humble, hardworking, and be self-accountable. Based on studies done in Harvard and by scientists, they did a report on it. I'm not sure. I just am recalling this off the top of my head. But in order to make change, usually for the average person to change a bad habit or to form a good habit, it takes 66 days. And so it's not always going to happen overnight. But it's a lot of people fail when they quit. You just can't quit. You have to stick at it and kick it in the ass every day. 21, you cannot fall victim to and let your mind be kind of you can't fall victim to society's toxicity. And what I mean by that is trying to live up to something that you're not, as I was referring to earlier. You've got to protect your mind from it. And that can be on a spectrum from anything from politics to propaganda in TV shows, movies, your friends influencing you, whatever it may be. 22, time is the ultimate equalizer for the wealthy. They value their time more than anything because they know they are a human being that has a kind of they have something that sorry about that. My brain just farted. Yeah, when I'm talking about time, they know that their time is the most valuable thing that they can have, because if somebody's wasting their time, they could be go earning money. And kind of moving on to my next step, education for the wealthy does not end when they get out of college or when they're 25. That's when they start. That's when they join and they get in on their journey. Life isn't something where, like I said, it's you jump to riches. It's a journey. You have to embrace that journey and value it as it is. And you have one life, so you've got to value it as a top priority and something that you have one life. So why not put 100% into mostly everything you do? I know we all get tired, but if you're young and your mind is right and you can function and do well, use it. Don't waste your talents. Don't waste your potential. 24 step that I came up with. The amount of money in your life is kind of a direct correlation to the value you've provided others. So if you're a lazy bum who sits around in bed all day and doesn't do anything, the value of your pockets is going to be the value that you provided people. If you're a businessman and you sell cars and you've sold cars to the whole town, your pockets are going to reflect that. If you're Jeff Bezos and you've affected the whole world, your pockets are going to reflect that as well. And I don't mean just because you're not rich doesn't mean that you don't provide value to someone in some way, but I mean monetarily, that's what that's referring to. 25, you've got to stop chasing money and start chasing your needs. And what I mean by that is, what makes you happy? What do you need? What do you aspire to do in life? Don't just chase money and then get there and not know what to do with it and spend it like you've never had it before, because that'll be your downfall in the end. 26, take 4 years of hard work as an entrepreneur and gain 40 years of freedom, where you can go travel the world with your family. You can control your own schedule. You're not on your boss's schedule. You don't have anybody telling you what to do. 27, the biggest red flag that I've came into when talking about money is when somebody says, oh, everybody does it. For example, everyone knows people are going around doing this scamming SBA loans or whatever it may be. They're like, oh, well, everyone does it. They get 10K, they get 10K, whatever it may be. Well, they don't mention the fact that you're probably going to be questioned by the FBI at some point, and you're going to have to pay for whatever you did. And then you're going to have to tell them it was this guy, and they're going to say, well, you knew what he was doing. So it's just something you want to stay out of. And that's not the only thing that I'm referring to. But if like I was talking about earlier, the little Instagram ads, they're like, well, everybody's doing drop shipping. Why haven't you started yet? I drive a Hellcat and I make it every day. No, they rented a Hellcat and they're lying to you. Just being honest. 28, the internet is the shark of the fast lane business. And what I mean by that is when you go on Instagram, it's all fast lane, it's all drop shipping, it's all fast money, fast money, fast money. But what you want to do is build a good foundation and reallocate the profits of your business into marketing and stuff like that, so that you will build out and up, kind of. You have the foundation and you build out and up. You can't just build straight up or you're going to fall down. So you've got to take that into account when you're building a business. I personally am more into building brands because businesses don't make money like brands do. And so if you can build a brand, you're going to be very wealthy and you're going to do well for yourself in the long term. 29, financial freedom, something I was talking about earlier. It has a price. And what is that price? The price of financial freedom is money. And so if you want to be financially free and you want to do things, travel the world, have a cool man cave, buy cars, you've got to be able to afford that. And the hardest workers can have leisure, but their leisure time isn't as much, so you've got to find the right balance there. 30, if you ever want to live above your means, you must temporarily live below your means with the intent to expand your means. What I mean by that, when I was working in the restaurant industry, I didn't spend money on stuff I didn't need. I wasn't trying to impress anybody. I was just going through every day, and I was stacking up money. And then I got to the point where I was like, oh, I've got some money. I can make this money into more money. So when you do that over a long period of time, you will start to notice you're separating yourself from the pack and you're getting into the 1%. 31, an idea is an event while wealth is the process. My bad, sorry. I said the wrong word. An idea is an event while execution is the process. Sorry, I don't know why I said that. And what I mean by that is everybody can have ideas. Everybody can say, I'm sure we've all had ideas where we're saying, why wasn't this ever invented? Well, if you think that to yourself, take action or do something. Action is more important than ideas. If you take action on something, you're going to have more success than somebody who just thinks and sits there and sits there and sits there. You can't be the baby lion waiting to attack the gazelle. You got to attack before somebody else comes and does. 33 or 32, my bad. I referred to this earlier. Don't build a business, strive to build a brand. Businesses survive, brands thrive. 33, whenever you're learning a skill, be monogamous about it. Don't try and learn stock trading, real estate, drop shipping all at the same time. Be monogamous. Master one skill, expand to the other. And then as you learn, you'll be able to get to the point where you can master multiple things at a time. And your brain is kind of formulated and developed to take on that workload. You don't want to overwork your brain. I'm just going to leave you guys off with kind of just something I came up with 34 stuff. You've got education, and education leads to money. And then when you've got money, money talks. So you're going to have some power. And when you have power, you have the ability to impact people. And when you impact people, what that does is that's going to grow your network. More people are going to know you. They're going to say, "Ooh, he taught me this, or this guy's product was great, his product was great." And what that does is people like you, and over time, what that's going to do is build up your legacy. And your legacy is what you will leave behind when you die. And so, do you want to be known as somebody who was a bum and sat around their whole life, or somebody who impacted massive amounts of people and was able to impact very many people on an everyday basis in their life? Thank you for listening to kind of my just 34 steps that I think are essential to building generational wealth. And I hope you guys enjoyed.